Fantasy Football Warriors. We are back. Waiver Wire going into week
8.
Ocho.
That is correct.
Absolutely correct. All right. Fantasy Football Warriors. Tank Sinatra, Eddie Bravo here, bringing you the nuggets that are going to lead you into week 8. Help you find those contributors in your waiver wire in case you need them. We are hitting buys. People are still getting injured galore, right?
Luckily, there are no buys this week.
No buys this week. So, hopefully we can bring you those nuggets that are going to help you find your contributors so that you can keep winning and keep making it towards your fantasy championship. So, with that being said, here we go. Boom.
High-end options. Well,
we get to talk about Jameis Winston this
week. It's always
week.
a good day, right? I know the highlight of, just this past Sunday was Nick Chubb's touchdown. That was.
It was.
Other than that, it was kind of this is right? But this is a slow week waiver wire wise. Quite the mouthful
Waiver
there.
wire wise.
Waiver wire wise. It's kind of a slow week, so you can look at this as high-end options or either depressed, and this is more like a mid-tier option, and then the mid-tier options are low-end, or or you can choose to just take out low-end options entirely, and everyone's elevated because of the lack of options.
Right.
Sort of a glass half full kind of thing. So obviously I went glass half full here, and we're gonna call Jameis Winston high-end option here. But Amari Cooper is gone. But
yes,
Mr.
Deshaun Watson.
I had to pause there because there was something politically incorrect that wanted to come out. But Deshaun Watson is out for the season with a
Achilles. I'm pretty sure it is.
Achilles ruptured, so he is done for the season. With that, we get hopefully the emergence of Jameis Winston. If not, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, kind of a question mark as a prospect here, but he is mobile. If he gets the nod, you're going to get rushing production out of him. Jameis Winston, we kind of more know what to expect out of him. Kind of more of gunslinger, not going to get you much with his legs, but he's going to be aggressive and just have fun playing football. He's going to toss
it for sure.
So might be interceptions, but there might be plenty of wonky touchdowns and plenty of yardage because he's not afraid to just throw, right? So
you saw it at the end of the game. He
nailed a crazy touchdown, right? Yeah.
He just chucked it into the end zone for was that Njoku that caught that one? I think it was Njoku that caught it. Yeah.
So
God bless him.
At this time, I'm unsure who will be the starter, who gets the nod.
Yeah,
DTR currently has a finger injury thing going on, so I'm not sure how serious that'll be. We'll get more information as the week goes on, but I think either one are fine options here. They get Baltimore this upcoming week, which is the premier matchup for passing. So especially if it's Jameis out there, he's going to be a high-end streamer. That's a great matchup through the air. They're pretty bad by EPA through the air, so they're giving up the most passing yards in the league. So it's good matchup for Jameis here if he gets the nod, and that's why I think he's a good waiver wire add, especially with Jaden Daniels potentially missing this upcoming week. All I've heard is that it's not long-term injury, nothing serious, but that doesn't mean he won't miss this week.
Right.
As a kind of we're gonna hold him out 1 week, but it's not long-term, so. We'll see what happens with the injury. He might play this week, he might not. But if you are a Jaden Daniels owner, I have several shares of Jaden Daniels. I might be looking at picking up Jameis Winston here and just having him on my bench just in case. So Jameis Winston is our first option here. Hunter Henry.
We talked about Hunter Henry over the weekend.
You brought it up. Yep. So since Drake May has took over, he leads the team in target share and team's percentage of yardage as well. So he's leading there with target share. He's leading the way with complete and total percent of the yards. Like, he's kind of the number one receiver at the moment. Obviously, last week, Demario Douglas got hurt. I guess it wasn't hurt. He was sick.
Yeah, he had like an undisclosed illness or some oddities going on.
That helped, and so maybe we see his production be a little bit lower this week, and it's not as great, but either way, he's been averaging 15.2 fantasy points per game, 13 last week. I think it was 18 this week, so it's been great production from the tight end, and there is a reasonable kind of catalyst to hook your wagon to is Drake May taking over to kind of think, okay, this production could continue. It wasn't a random 2-week spikes with
Right.
nothing changing. It was, okay, Drake May was clearly the catalyst to an increased not only passing production, obviously, because it was one of the worst passing offenses in the league under Jacoby Brissett, and now Drake May has back-to-back games with multiple passing touchdowns and over 200 yards passing. He's been playing great, and he's really elevated and been the catalyst to sparking this passing offense as a whole. Hunter Henry, if he's on the wire for you, which I think he's still unavailable in over 50% of leagues at this point. He's still on the wire. I think his roster percentage in ESPN league is like 17%, something like that. So he's available in a good amount of leagues. He is a priority target.
Yep, especially in this tight end death valley. You're going to take
production where you can get it.
Yep, production where you can get it. So find Henry.
Tyron Tracy. Obviously, if you've been watching our videos, we've been talking about him for several weeks now. But Devin Singletary came back this week, so not only is he under 50% rostered in ESPN leagues, but people probably might have dropped him after Devin Singletary came back with the expectation that he was going to go to backup role. We talked about in Start Sit how we expected increased usage. Brian Dable came forward and talked about increased usage, and it manifested in this week 7. He was in command of all the touches, route participation, percentage of the team's carries, and snap percentage. He had edged Devin Singletary out in all of those things. So it looks like right now that he's in command of the touches. He's going to be the lead back, which I think he's earned it. As a rookie, he stepped in, played very, very well.
Yep.
Devin Singletary's been good too, and they did talk about wanting to ease in Devin Singletary. So there is the possibility that next week we look at more of like a 50-50 split across the board, and it's not going to be so egregiously in favor of Tyron Tracy, but that is pure speculation. We don't really know how the split's going to work out, and it could continue to just be in favor of Tyron Tracy. Cedric Tillman, with Amari Cooper gone and now Deshaun Watson gone. Tillman led the way in targets and air yards with a pretty impressive day at 18 PPR fantasy points this week.
Yeah,
so
that's not bad at all.
He looks, at least in this first week, it's a small sample size, so borderline high-end option, but I think it's good enough to hitch your wagon to, especially this week in a premium passing and receiving environment.
Yep.
I think Jameis Winston or DTR should be, based on what we saw, looking for Cedric Tillman plenty. And we could be getting a fine plug-and-play from Cedric Tillman at least this week and potentially beyond.
Mid-tier, Marcus Mariota. What a world we live in where we're talking about Marcus Mariota.
I hope no one gets to use him. Jaden Daniels has a rib injury. Unsure the severity at this time, but we'll kind of see. Like we talked about a moment ago, it doesn't seem to be super long-term, but he could still miss this week. A lower-end play, I wanted to mention him just because Jaden Daniels is hurt, and Marcus Mariota kind of runs the offense well. It kind of looked like, obviously, it was against the Panthers, so take it with a grain of salt, but he does get production with his legs. He's going to get some rushing, so I think it's fine enough if you need him, if you don't have any better options, and you are having to go without Jaden Daniels this week. I mean,
I almost feel like it's not even going to happen. Like, Jaden Daniels is out there
smiling on the sideline
before the game was even over, and I think they even mentioned that he could have came back in if they needed him to. But the game was out of hand. But the game was like 27-0 at that point.
Yeah, that's why
I really don't think that it'll get to that. I think Jaden Daniels will play.
Yeah, that's why Mariota is in this mid-tier, but I mentioned earlier how it's kind of the low end. We just don't have a ton of options, so interpret as you will. But it's still enough of a chance that Jaden Daniels missed that I think it's fine enough if you want to pick him up and just kind of play with it if you have no better options on the wire. And you need a starter, obviously, with Jaden Daniels out. I think this is an option to go, but I'm not expecting anything crazy out of here. It's not a great matchup this week against Chicago, so it's Marcus Mariota. He just might be fine enough for this week. Jatavian Sanders, who we mentioned last week, had 9 points last week, 12 this week, so continue to trend upward. He had more receptions, more yardage here this week.
He did.
He now has at least 5 targets in each of the last 3 weeks, and Denver is allowing 9 targets per game to opposing tight ends. That is his matchup this week.
Boom.
Reasonable to assume that Jatavian Sanders should be in for another good week if you need an option. Jatavian Sanders is plenty fine, and with the trajectory he's currently on, he could be a plug-and-play starter for the rest of the season. Jatavian Sanders. Streaming options. Starting off with, as we talked about, Jameis Winston. He's really the only streaming option that I could really see from a matchup perspective and quarterbacks that are probably not rostered.
And that are probably gonna
be fine. Yeah.
Gonna, for the rest of the season even.
It's
right? You
possible.
gotta think it's possible he's the starter the rest of the season. Right? So if you need someone, Jameis Winston is probably the first option you want to look at.
At least for this week, though, that's really what I'm looking at here because, I mean, if you're looking for a fantasy championship, you should probably have quarterback mostly figured out, but he's a fine streaming option if you don't, or if you're having a bad matchup, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Reason that you might need to stream a quarterback, right? But as we talked about, Ravens are allowing the most passing yards per game, and they're tied for 5th in passing touchdowns. Jameis Winston should be throwing plenty and should have a pretty good time of it, especially because the Ravens aren't a team you want to attack on the ground. They're a team you want to attack through the air. So Jameis Winston, that's kind of the only streaming option I can really see this week. For defenses, Bears at Commanders. If Marcus Mariota plays, he is very prone to mistakes and doing
and the
things.
Bears are coming off the bye.
They've played great defense up until this point.
Great defense up to this point, yep.
Actually currently the toughest passing environment by an EPA per pass allowed, so not great. So that should bode well for this Chicago defense that's already been playing fine enough, and now they potentially get a matchup against a backup quarterback.
Yep.
Chiefs, Raiders. Chiefs defense is very, very strong, and the Raiders do not have elite quarterback play. I love Gardner Minshew, but
this is the one right here,
he's also prone to mistakes, and this is not a great game environment. Be just fine with streaming the Chiefs in this game.
Oh, yeah. Go find them.
And that is the waiver wire video.
And that it is.
As I mentioned here, not a super enticing week, but there are still options here to potentially bolster your roster from this week and beyond.
It's fantasy football. There's always something to talk about.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like super enticing or world-shattering, groundbreaking, whatever. There's always something to talk about. Always something to mention. There's always contributors that you could find to help you out on any given week, depending on your situation. And that's what we're going to bring you. We're going to bring you the nuggets. So,
absolutely.
So, that'll do it. Quick waiver wire for week 8. D Tank Sinatra, Eddie Bravo. Again, if you enjoy the content, give us a like, leave us a comment on the bottom. Is there someone that we left out? Is there someone that you feel was worthy of a mention on the waiver wire and maybe we didn't talk about them? Let's talk about them, right? It's the Fantasy Football Warriors. Let us know about your rivalries this week, right? Who are you looking to battle in week 8? What's the significance of it? And, subscribe so you don't miss any content. Join the militia. We want a Fantasy Football Warrior in every fantasy league on the planet. We want representation. Fantasy Football Warriors everywhere, all over the place.
That's right.
That's right.
Serving your food. We're taking out your garbage everywhere.
That's right. Don't mess with us. All right, we're taking over the world. So, with that, again, for the Tank Sinatra, this is Eddie Bravo. That's your waiver wire for week 8. Real quick, real simple, short and sweet. Go get them. We'll see you next time on the Start Sit for week 8. Coming at you.